Hello, everyone. Hope you are doing well. So here we have one of the text, and where the question is pertinent to this particular text. Prior to that, let's go to the text and try to know that. So this is one of the decision-making text question, and the text is pointed here that the lawsuit which was filed in 2019 by DXC alleged that employees of the Indian IT company assigned to developing its bank's platform encountered difficulties devising a software solution for calculating a rate of return ROR in a particular insurance context. The lawsuit mentioned emails exchanged between TCS employees that they found the necessary solution in the Vantage software. Later, a TCS employee allegedly copied and pasted the actual Vantage source code relating to this calculation and resulting Vantage calculations into an email and sent to his TCS colleagues. The lawsuit said one TCS employee wrote in an email, "Here is text from the old Vantage manuals on the rate of return screen for reference if it answers any questions." He then pasted nearly 2 pages from a Vantage manual describing how CSC determined calculated investment return on annuities. The lawsuit further the lawsuit further reveals that this same TCS employee looked at transactions of interest that are accessed by the Vantage source code in performing the calculation and sent to his colleague, colleague via email. Another TCS employee circulated additional CSC proprietary information regarding the way that Vantage performs this calculation. The TCS employee also copied and pasted the actual Vantage source code relating to the calculation and resulting Vantage calculations into an email and sent it to his colleagues. It is worth noting that this latest ruling against TCS is another setback to the IT major after the US Supreme Court confirmed a punitive damage award of 140 million in the Epic System case for accessing its web portal without authorization. Okay, so this is the text, and as per the text, in if you understand that, it is clearly stating about what there is a legal issue, right? Legal issue involving what two big IT companies. One is a DXC and the other one is called as a TCS, isn't it? So DXC filed a lawsuit in 2019, claiming that TCS employees faced problems while working on a software project for DXC banks, isn't it? So yeah, DXC banks um, platform, and the problem was related to what that called as a uh, calculating a rate of return, right? Calculating a rate of return. So in that case, in a specific insurance scenario, and as per the lawsuit cited according to the lawsuit, TCS employees found a solution in their Vantage software. However, it is alleged that one TCS employee copied and sent the actual Vantage source code, the behind the scenes instruction for the software. So, related to this calculation to colleagues via email, and this included information from Vantage manuals on how to calculate investment ROR or return on annuities. Another TCS employee also shared details about specific transaction used by the Vantage software or for the calculation, and this information was sent through emails, isn't it? So, uh, along with more copied source code. So the lawsuit uh, claims what? The lawsuit claims what? That TCS TCS violated rules. TCS violated rules. Rules by using what? Using the access proprietary private information without permission. This recent ruling against TCS is seen as a setback for the company, especially after what you can say. Um, After a previous case where they were fined $140 million, 140 million dollar, isn't it? By the US Supreme Court. In that case, so TCS was penalized for unauthorized access to a web portal belonging to another company called Epic System, isn't it? Epic System. Now, on the basis of this question text, let's look at the question. What does the question ask here? Uh, the question which is pointed, and let me read this. So, in the turbulent legal landscape, in the turbulent legal landscape surrounding the DXC lawsuit, which aspect is palpable in the actions of TCS? Legal compliance or ethical consideration? Now, uh, so what do we find out in this particular part? If we observe here, the question which is asked here in the complex legal situation surrounding the DXC lawsuit, what is evident? What is evident? You can say that in TCS actions, a focus on following the law, legal compliance, or a consideration of doing what is morally right, which is ethically consideration, isn't it? Now, it is something called as a legal legal versus ethical questions, legal versus ethical questions of decision making in this scenario can be analyzed in a different manner. So if you look into the legal perspective, so what do we find out? We find out that as per the passage, right, or as per the text, you can say that allegation in the lawsuit, allegation, allegation in the lawsuit is what you can find out. The lawsuit filed by DXC, which alleged that TCS employees violated legal rules by using DXC's proprietary information without permission. So this is nothing but a legal concern, isn't it? So why it is called as a legal concern? Um, because obviously, um, if you talk about that, um, someone's without permission, if you have used something, so which will be considering as nothing but a means a legal concern and will be addressed in the legal proceedings. And what is the evidence provided? Evidence presented, you can say, or provided. So the lawsuit mentions nothing but emails and actions of TCS employees, actions of TCS employees, isn't it? Employees. So, suggesting a potential breach of intellectual property and violations of confidential agreements, isn't it? Uh, if if they are proved true, if they are proved true, then what will happen? So, these action could have legal consequences for TCS, isn't it? So even also you would find out another evidence that called as a previous legal setback. The text also refers to a previous case where TCS was fined 140 millions, right or not? $140 million, which is given by the US Supreme Court for unauthorized access to another company, which is called as a Epic System. Um, so, for the unauthorized access to another company's web portal, this sets a precedent and indicates a history of legal issues for TCS uh, sorry, you can say that legal issues for TCS, right? Now, if I talk about ethical perspective, so what do we find out in ethical perspective? Okay. Okay. So if I talk about ethical perspective, so we can find out that breach of trust, isn't it? What do we find out? It's called as a ethical perspective, ethical perspective, where you will find out breach of trust, breach of trust. So, from an ethical standpoint, sharing proprietary information without consent raises concerns about trust and integrity. Companies are expected to uphold ethical standards in handling confidential information, isn't it? Mm, So, and you also need to look at the employee actions. The actions of TCS employees, as described in the lawsuit, may be seen as ethically questionable. Copying and sharing source code and proprietary information could be viewed as what that called as a breach of professional code of conducts. Professional breach of what? Professional ethics, isn't it? Next is called as the consequences of ethics. Consequences, consequences of ethics, or consequences of actions. So, ethical decision making involves considering the potential consequences of actions on all stakeholders. If TCS employees indeed violated ethical standards, it could damage the company's reputation and trust amongst clients and partners. So, in that case, if we try to look into that resolving legal versus ethical dilemma, so we need to look for what? Now, legal compliances also. So TCS should ensure full cooperation with the legal proceedings and address the allegation through proper legal channels. Legal obligations and consequences need to be addressed according to the law, right? At the same time, also, TCS needs to go for the internal investigation. TCS might conduct an internal investigation. So, teachers might conduct an internal investigation to determine the facts and assess whether any internal policies or ethical guidelines were violated or not. This can help in taking corrective action within the organization. So, another thing is called as what? That known as a employee training, employee training. If ethical lapses are identified, teachers may consider additional training program to educate employees on the importance of ethical behavior, confidentiality, and respecting intellectual property rights, isn't it? So, and another one is called as a rebuilding trust, rebuilding, rebuilding trust rebuilding trust. So, teachers should take steps to rebuild trust with clients and stakeholders by demonstrating a commitment to ethical business practices. This may involve, you can say that, transparent, transparent communication, transparent communication about corrective measures taken. So, all total, if you look into that, uh, addressing legal concern through legal channels and taking proactive steps to address ethical issues internally are main part to resolving the legal versus ethical questions. So, generally, we find out that in a decision making context and in this particular text too. So, uh, let's move to the question and let's see that which of the option will be suitable to means to uh, draw the answer of this question. Look into this. So the first one, it is ask. In the turbulent legal landscape surrounding the DXC lawsuit, which aspect is palpable in the action of TCS legal compliance or ethical consideration? So if I look into this particular part, so what I can find out, we need to understand. The question is asking what? So here the question is asked, uh, that what? TCS action in the DXC. TCS action, uh, TCS actions in the DXC, in the DXC, DXC lawsuit, DXC lawsuit, show a focus. Show what? Show a focus on following the law, right? Following what? Following the law, legal compliance, or doing what is morally right, ethical consideration. So that is what it is stated: legal compliance or ethical compliance. So in the turbulent legal landscape surrounding the DXC lawsuit, which aspect is palpable in the action of TCS, whether it's a legal compliance or ethical consideration? Now, on the basis, or you can, in a very simple term, you can say that this is action in the DXC lawsuit. So, a focus in the so focus on following the which law, right? Legal compliance or doing what is morally right, ethical consideration. Let's say that let's um, understand means what we understood from the passage. Now we understood from the passage that a lawsuit where TCS is accused of copying another company's software code. This implies nothing but what? That called as a potential potential um, what do we say that? Potential legal issues, isn't it? Potential legal issues, legal issues related to what? Related to intellectual property and contractual obligation, intellectual property and contractual, contractual you can say that obligations, contractual obligations, right? Now if I read the first option, what does the first option point out? So the first option say TCS actions exhibit a commitment to legal compliance, adhering to established law, regulations, and contractual obligations governing the software development industry, isn't it? Now if I look into this particular part, can it be fit to the idea which is pointed, or means the question that has been asked here? Let's see that. So the idea pointed what? The thesis action exhibit a commitment to legal compliance, adhering to established law, regulation, and contractual obligations governing the software development industry. And as far as we have read from the passage, what the passage discusses a lawsuit where TCS is accused of copying another company's software code, and this implies potential legal issues related to intellectual property and contractual obligation. So on the basis of that, option A points out what? Option A points out the legal issues or legal compliance, isn't it? Legal, sorry, not legal issues, it's a legal compliance, right? Legal compliance. Now, the if I look into that, this option A, the passage mentions a lawsuit indicating a legal dispute. So passage indicating about nothing but a legal dispute. TCS is accused of copying code, suggesting a possible breach of contractual obligations and laws governing the software industry. It's like what? Imagine someone copying text from a book without permission. It would be a legal issue, right? Someone copying text from a book without permission, it would be a legal issue, right? Isn't it? So in that case, he does what? He does nothing but a kind of a means illegality, right or not? So similar to that, if I look into the option B, so this one is nothing but a legal compliance, and at the same time, if I look into the option B stated what? The ethical fabric of TCS action is woven into a tapestry of ethical considerations, emphasizing principles of honesty, integrity, and responsibility goes beyond that go beyond legal obligations. Now, of option B, right, is indicating about what? Means um, ethical consideration. What is it stating? It is stating about ethical consideration. Ethical consideration. It means the passage does not emphasize teacher's actions based on moral principles like honesty or integrity. It focuses more on the what? More on the legal, right? Legal aspects of the situation. So, like if someone copied a friend's homework, it might be ethically wrong, but it is not the focus in this particular text, isn't it? So, um, in that case, means option B cannot be taken because it is stated about what? It is stated about means ethical considerations. Whereas here we find out on the basis of the passage uh, clearly indicating about means uh, clearly indicating about something which is a legal issue and something means on the basis of what accusing of copying code suggesting a possible breach of contractual obligation and laws, so that's why it needs a legal compliance. So third one is what? Third one is stated the situation presents a confluence of both A and B, where TCS endeavors to align its action not only with the letter of the law, but also with the broader ethical expectation and standards inherently in its corporate ethos. Now, this one is indicating about what? Legal compliance, legal compliance, and ethical consideration, ethical consideration, isn't it? So, uh, if I look into that, both A and B, this cannot be fit here. The passage does not strongly indicate this is consideration of broader ethical expectations. It centers more on what? More on legal compliance or legal allegations and consequences. It's like suggesting someone copying a document uh, is both a legal and moral action. But the passage leans more towards what? Legality. Passage more leans more towards what? Legality. So therefore, it doesn't fit actually. See, so now moving to the option D. Option D said the actions of DCs seem to fall into a category of neither A nor B, suggesting that the decisions made may not align with either established legal norms or broader ethical consideration. So option D also doesn't fit because the passage does discuss what? Legal the passage does discuss legal issues or legal aspects, so making option D less accurate. It doesn't align with the details provided in the passage. So you can say that it's like saying copying a patented design is neither legal nor illegal. So, which is not accurate actually, right? So therefore, option D can be also eliminated. Okay. So option C also eliminated because it talks about what both aspects, ethical and means you can say legal compliance. So whereas it leans more towards legal, and option B only talking about ethical. Option A stated about legal compliance, which is uh, seeming correct to the question. Look into the option A. Option E stated the intricacies of the situation cuts the distinction between legal compliance and ethical consideration ambiguous, making it challenging to definitively categorize thesis action within one framework or the other. Now, in this case, the idea which is pointed ambiguity, right? So the passage does provide specific details about legal issues. So it is not, you can't say that entirely, entirely ambiguous or ambiguity, entirely ambiguity, isn't it? So it's more about legal concerns than a lack of clarity, than a lack of clarity, lack of clarity, isn't it? So it's relate to saying someone copying software code is ambiguous. It is clear it involves legal concerns, isn't it? So therefore, if I look into the conclusion, then what I can point out here means I can point out B, C, D, E. These four options are eliminated because of the what means ethical consideration, indicating about both aspect. It is indicating neither aspect, and this one is creating ambiguity. Whereas the as per the passage option A, which will be most appropriate, most fitting, as it accurately reflects what the emphasize on legal compliance based on the idea which is pointed in the passage. Hence, the answer option should be A as per the idea given. That's all. Thank you.